These standers aren't friendlies. He's been through days where they stood wide apart and high waving greens hid both him and the four-footed ones. Some and often would let you climb in for a hazardless shelter. When the dark enveloped all again and the howling and the hooting heralded fangs and silent wings. Some and others would let light play through in myriad colors that made the seers in his face water with joy, and strange pleasantness under his hair and even between his runners, where the little good-for-nothing drizzler would rise and stand straight like the big rocks he'd seen men buried under. But not these. No, not these. These standers grabbed at him, tore at him, ripped till the red of death dripped through his thin fur. These weren't friendlies. The rage was upon him, panting and screaming as he hurled his taut self through the dark miasma of green and brown shadows, cracking and slapping at him, tearing him up with their unmoving feet, sliding, falling. He growled and groveled through the bush, and then all started crying. He'd noticed long away when he wasn't so much and Lizard Drizzler never rose bigger than the points of his grabbers, that when everything cried it tasted like the running and jumping water that all put their mouth into. Yet when he cried, it tasted strong and hard, almost like you could bite it, and somewhat like the rolling water plane whose frightening edge was early being him with them. And the old, who soon after stopped walking, had raised the grabber across that vast expanse and hit him hard, picked him off the rocks, and with starshot gaze made him taste both sea and tear, and pushing him towards the rising land, made him man. They weren't friendlies. The pouring, the pounding, the streaking, screaming, scolding, screeching, cracking, flaming, all was rage around him, and he joined in, a rhythm of blood, pumping legs, jumping branches, beating mud, running as tears salted the rain, and raw fear rolled out like thunder. The big stander was waiting for him, different. as he birded himself through the thinning fiendishing foul, knowing no sure-footedness lay beyond the tall and alone, and even that was moving, picking up his feet in a long sinuous seeker tearing out of the rocks, as he hurled himself into the vanishing safety of his thick and many arms, laden with green heavy nesting. They both tumbled into nothing, as the sky fire split the world, cutting before and after apart, like a howler's bite. Nothing into something somewhere every time. Every time he found he'd stop moving for a while. The gushing rains made way for a sloshing of waters through the arms of the fallen big stander. And as he crouched between two, the feeling was not of earth. And in sharp disbelief it brought back the floaty warm feeling of first being, before first pain, and sharp light brought upon him his very first own sound, the scream of heartfelt helplessness amidst the smell of red. They were on a big nothing of water, not easy and calm, but breaking, tumbling and beating through wounds in the crusted land, rumbling and shouting as it was fighting with the rocks, hitting them against each other like the horrid eaters had done with the heads of those he'd been with in times away. Eyes like glowing coals as they drank the red from the cracks in their skulls till they fell from something into nothing, as he did again. The slapping tapping sounded friendly now, like the chittering winged ones who outdid their size by their numbers and sound as they nest in the hiding nooks of bushes. There were none. Just a rustling of water through the branches that the big stander hadn't lost in the fall or sacrificed in the fight between rocks and water. The feet of the stander were all but gone and quite stumped as they pointed the way the nothing of water was taking them. Brown like mud came from his hole that all have, and he watched it float and drown past the branches as he rubbed his arse upon the leaves so the brown wouldn't stick. He'd known those with two holes and no drizzler, and they were dangerous more often than not. Some small tail and little leg things moved, and he grabbed and bit and swallowed and bit again, and red dripped, and he licked it from him, 'cause red is life, unless it's yours, dripping without relent. That's why the two-legged with the two holes were dangerous. They could ooze red and not stop being. They have the power of red. And sometimes they don't ooze for long, and when they do, they scream out a being with it that joins in the scream and becomes. Drifting on a vast expanse of nothing water, he befriends the floating stander and nests, gazing into has-been. It's a funny feeling laying at anchor, the boat's moving yet going nowhere except in a slow semicircle, left to right, right to left. And you can hear the water flowing past, and on a tidal stream at springtide, it's really rushing. When the anchor braves its force at the end of a taut chain and rope. And though at ease, you feel the constant need to check your bearings and alertly jump into action should you feel the lull-tug-lull of a crabbing safeguard. Once awakened by a thumping horn of a passing freighter whilst drifting through a shipping lane, I spend the next hour being guided back to safe anchorage over VHF and the rest of the night dozing off over the helm. Is it only the mistakes we make that make us feel fortunate for surviving them? Lucky if we fail to repeat them? Blissful in the face of glowing success? This whole game of trial and error which we call survival, and in which we are all game to the ominous, plentiful throngs, fangs, claws, lists and traps of the great equalizing force of death, that binds us like nothing else to a lust for life, that will even forgive tedious waiting in line, dull soul-numbing wage slavery, and endless repetition of whose turn of control over the remote or task of doing the dishes, whose life it is if not shared, how shared if not ruptured and broken, entwined and drowsed with sorrow, laughter and despair, that make us cling to a belief in tomorrow even just for tomorrow's sake. We are bound by love and guilt to prove it! The nights are so much stronger than the daytimes, in which all is visible and plain, not much left to the imagination except stale realism hounding us into daydreams just to get away and breathe some colors. I know not what I am, therefore I create and recreate myself. This constant self-destruction haunts me like the closest of shadows, the ghost of madness and well-being. The thousand ones I might, may, have, shall, be, am me. Same for you. And how we meet. Clusters of ourselves, engaging, raging, raping, loving, debating, sedating, giving, taking, while all we do is say hello. And perhaps goodbye, and we leave each other, knowingly unknown, with pieces and fragments exchanged and trailing in the wind like pollen for a future and fallen leaves of yesteryears. The nights tell stories and we write them down, paint, sculpt, drink, TV them. Fuck 'em like whores and lick 'em like lovers. Fuck 'em like whores and lick 'em like lovers. Carefully lay them to sleep, like children that may not even be ours, but need a cover and a cuddle and a light on down the hall. We sing the stories and eat them alive, dancing to digest the ways in which we, coward and hero, slave and commander, idiot and savant, claim to know that what it is we're doing down here. We claim to know what it is that we're doing down here, what for and to what end, and why this way and not that. And we bicker and battle to the safety of the dark and lonely realm of shadows and stars, where there is not the one sun close by, but many far away. The altered shape of the floating standard has also altered its existence. Once fully grown to be that strong earthbound sky-reaching vessel of fortitude and longevity, it has lost most of its now underwater growth and found a precarious balance healing around its trunk. The nesting man, like a squatting bird, wove the broken and middle branches into the sides and over the top somewhat, and while running across a whirlpool, found that by leaning strongly against the side of a root stump, he could alter the course of his living vessel. Now, with the once high up tip floating in first, he gets a sensation akin to walking, moving towards something as well as away. For though he cannot really walk on this nothingness of water, crazing him in hues of blue, green, brown, grey, and depthless black, he starts to sense a control of motion, a synergy of direction with the flow of tide and time, a perpetuity whilst remaining on the spot yet moving, strange, wondrously new, as always dangerous, as somewhen pleasant.
First time I remember watching my face from my skull, I must have been about 5, 6, 7 maybe. Life becomes such a stretch when you have no sleeping pattern to speak of and nights are spent sitting in your head, gazing out the windows of your eyes while the body lies near mortified and dull. The fluorescent light of the alarm clock playing timekeep and shadow master as the curtains grow faces, the ceiling becomes a storyboard, and the quiet slowly devolves the tensions of day life. I'd usually pass out briefly around daybreak when the hour blue sends its chill to the bony wind, only to get adrenaline shocked by the buzzer and the forced staccato rhythm of a morning routine. Into the bathroom, into the mirror where I watch my face melt off, my skull shining yellow, green, bone grey and sunset red, staring through my head till all went black. And I came back and just ran the tap and washed a little. Whatever you grow up with, you get used to. Be it edredons or rats scurrying across the newspaper thin blanket, the maid combing your hair or getting a daily beating, being overfed and encouraged to get fussy, picky, vain, unsatisfiable, or just hope to eat something, sometime, somewhere today, and expect not to get picked, or hope not to get picked on. To search in vain, unaware of such a state of being called satisfaction. Whatever you grow up with, you get used to.
This is a piece from Green's team. Is it granted that in fact we toil to be lazy? To be able to be lazy, you must either be quick as a lizard or dominantly brutish, safe as a rabbit in a burrow, or slung up a tree like a snake. Or be a tree, a rock, a fluid drop of dew hiding in the shadows of an old oak door. And dependent on your bucket full of wish lists, you'll have to be working hard at keeping survival level at a necessary height. To keep all alarms quiet and all biochemical delight feeding your well-being. Oh, serotonin, god of pleasure and seducer of pain, hear my humble cry for rest. All is safe, and therefore I'm the best. Let me slumber in your smile and bestow happiness on all that I reflect, while I avert my gaze from destiny's door. A crowd of emotions running through my veins as they carry me beyond the veil of awakeness and into... Where exactly? Not a clue. Walking this planet for ages, most of us sleeping a rather large third of the time, and no specific clue as to what we do and where we go. We regenerate, revitalize, and not rarely wake up exhausted nonetheless. We think, we rummage through our impressions of the world around, or maybe we briefly ghost around. Traveling through bends in time-space, falling through cracks in space-time, spinning on convergence points somewhere in mind and matter, creating and evading the emotional vortices that level the barrels of want and need as we communicate with Morpheus, that quiet, observant blue-hour customer at the dopamine bar, who's well aware that his glass is forever half empty and half full, and wouldn't have it any other way. The reminder that it's not about the glass, it's where you got to drink, what you're drinking, how much, and where it may take you. How watered down do you take your life? You take your life on the rocks, the rock of ages. The glaciers are melting. How did a rock in the surf ever become a symbol of hope and trustworthiness? I don't get it. Imagine coming into shore on a wee boat, being pushed this way and that by the wistful waters, frantically oversteering the helm while calmly keeping that nose to harbor. The last thing I want in that case is a bleed-in, half-submerged rock showing under keel or dead ahead, as many a shipwrecked soul will testify. Is it the lighthouse it carries like Atlas does the globe? And ever since the first floating tree carried a monkey across the blue divide, carrying in its poop the first migrated seeds and waste, global trade dies on rocks in the shallows and worships the reflected light that is poised over danger. The media searchlights, the billboards, the red lanterns, social lighthouses, the moral code encrypted in humans' divergent colors and cultures, as different as places underneath the skies and creatures that care to live there. Agriculture started after we stayed in the same place long enough for the undigested seeds in our pile of excrement to flourish. After we found that the pile of wheat that the lazy porters accidentally dropped by the track became a crop, and thus a lazier way of gathering food, and therefore more energy efficient at first glance and for a while. Are we the hopscotch frog leaping through this timely dance of existence forevermore? Do we let our bodies find the moves? No time to pause when the beat goes on and the beat goes on, and we join it reflected in our hearts, the beat of a drum, the crushing of the road under 1,000 sets of wheels per second, the somewhat sickeningly reassuring rumble of machinery as you punch the clock on a factory floor Monday morning at 5, the reassurance of continuity. However dull, bleak and mind-numbing it may be, in moments like these, a human easily believes he's but ash and dust, sinew, grease and bone, and relinquishes the mind of his own. Mind-numbing serotonin, idol of abnegation, oh acrid acid of breakfastless stomach, lucidifier of desert dreams and nightmares as we stagger under the burning sun and through the coldest nights of devastated solitude. Like questing prophets and madmen alike, where lies that edge? Where lies that edge, the everlasting question? Even after we found and finally accepted that the earth is round and the sun and moon don't actually rise and set, but rather we orbit the one and dance with the other. It doesn't stop us from enjoying a refreshing sunrise and a glorious sunset. It doesn't seem to make us realize we ain't exactly the center of the universe either. We just shifted our gaze to the edge of the unknown universe and started probing and ejaculating space monkeys and satellites. Keys to unlock the vast potential of the unknown. We scare ourselves with visions of an apocalyptic planet to make the prospect of life in outer space seem like a great good. What? Really? So the spaceship we're on currently is already overloaded with busybody two-legs, unable to fit all their needs and urges into a way of life that creates more than it destroys in the process and sustains itself in alignment with the planet. And it's cheerio, let's go look for a late-night deli on the far end of the galaxy instead of cleaning the crap out of our totally fucked up evolutionary diapers. I mean, really? And yet it's those first pictures from outer space of a blue planet shrouded in a veil of clouds that made a mass of people take notice and realize there is an edge. That quivering line between the atmosphere and the stark dark beauty and reality of cold, seemingly timeless space. Was it ever, I wonder, a custom in a tribe somewhere to have the man carve an instrument while the woman is pregnant, so that at the time of birth they could eat bites through an end of the umbilical cord and then tie it tight across the sound hole, so when dried over the fire they could listen to the life song of their infant and forecast the melody of their life. The forests grow corpses of desiccated searchers of ancestral wisdom. And everlasting bliss. The asylums pile up the seers and those plagued by visions, voices, and furies failing to accept these energies within their framework of normality, that obligatory stonebed of societal acceptability, where in fact it's up to society as a group of individuals to learn to accept its members as limbs and senses of the body, the species, being human to human being. We all act out the folly, fury, madness, fear, mockery, beastliness, divinity, sageness, savageness of our being, the human being. As we run up and down a spiral staircase of our DNA, be it in the bedroom or the boardroom or the supermarket alley, the parking lot bomber fights or courtoisies, we worship actresses and actors that portray and enlarge our plentiful ways of being, feeling, thinking, acting, or not. Oftentimes we watch them do and undergo things we gladly or law-abidingly don't. But for the resonance of their actions and the gong in our guts, the ricocheting, rumbling, ringing in the back of your neck, the tingling surge in the small of your back, we worship them like gods, demigods, quarter gods, heroes, and heroines. The stress releasing, biochem pumping, neuro equalizing, tranquilizing mirror world that is the others. And if that's hell, it's up to you, just as much as them. Just bear in mind that it's simply easier to alter the focus of your own impressions than the world of another. Like any microscope aficionado can vouch and any stargazer can testify, often it's the looking glass that needs a cleanse and a little adjusting to recognize the what's ever mirror man having it on with his where's ever mirror woman on the kid's trampoline in the backyard. light pales the sweat of their skin to diamonds in the night sky. Gender neutrality. Gender neutrality. Whoever fucking came up with a word like gender neutrality? For fuck love's sake, you want to speak of sexual existence, equality, life-defining natural preference of sexual components to your relationships with other humans? And it's defined, defied, befouled, and obstinately negated by the term itself? Gender creepy neutrality? Not even androgenity, I mean neutered? It should be full gender awareness, extreme sexual respect, worship of the lustful love that the urge to live expresses itself through. In our physical beings and raging hormones, though we feel the need for procreations of the zillions of bacteria and freaky parasites that live within us, as symbiotically as we make our cell phones pets, kids, and spouses do? Or is it all a personal sex quest? Need for attention, giving it, pumping it, rolling and rocking it till the break of day, to bed or your back, whichever comes first, as long as we come together. Gender neutrality sounds like eunuchs galore. A booze up at the AA. Getting high in the basement. Not let love has as many faces as it does, so long no innocent parties are harmed and the neighbors can get some either sleep or inspiration while you're doing it. Fine, fuck, enjoy it, and please do it with someone you can huddle, cuddle, and squeeze up with. Before, during, and especially afterwards. Unless it's someone like me that gets flashes of inspiration and starts writing, painting, recording, welding, tattooing, sewing, or whatever after sex. It's just good for you both, or however, whatever, how many. I once met a high lady, happily coexisting with a Shih Tzu for foreplay, and a German Shepherd dog for the ride. After which the Shih Tzu came and licked up the mess. And they were happy, Teresa. Not my advice, just one of many observations, many observations. I still hear her laughing, saying how they hated cats but loved pussy. Anyway, how indiscriminate is it to forbid certain dog breeds on basis of race? We do it to animals as we do it to ourselves. Our industrial farms and slaughterhouses are set up like concentration camps, and we're even too stupid to capture and siphon off the methane farts for fuel. Though fair enough, that's like digging for gold teeth through the stacked corpses. Yet as gruesome as that may be, that same indifference to pain, suffering, and horror is exactly what it takes sometimes to be a firefighter, a cop, a parent, a teacher, a lover, a soul, a child, a man, a woman, and any gender or combination thereof. You are a human being, a being human. We all are, though not willingly so. No, as far as we know, we're forced into existence without much saying anything, not even or uneven. Unless you're born and bred, spoiled, kept immature, and destined to become a toddler tyrant of the house, the hood, or just as psychotic and sociopathic as it takes to function in the hierarchy of beasts that are corporations. Creatures with the might and sway of today's multinationals would in days of old have been described as gods for the gifts of food and employ they bring and the fun and games they provide, and demons to the small companies they gorge up, the work folk they condemn to wage slavery, the land they lay waste and barren like fire and brimstone and raised upon it and turn it all to desert. And And why should that be the legacy of us, you and me, and our commerce?
No choice. As I say, I'm a sailor, so we can take you through the rough waters, we can take you to the quiet waters, we can take you down to the dirty, dirty, dirty side of town. It's up to you. You like it quiet is 1, you like it rough is 2, you like it very rough and dirty is 3. So when I go 1, 2, or 3, you guys shout, and the shout that goes the loudest is the one you get. Don't blame me. 1, 2, 3. I knew you all had dirty minds. Okay, right, fine. As I say, whatever is said here is in private. Does not leave the room. Do not tell your kids until they're 50. All right?
Cheers. Thanks for being here. How many more? There seems to be a new fad amongst the hookers of Amsterdam. Glasses. Strolling through the night crowd of slightly horny, slightly embarrassed, and fully frustrated bands of single young guys, acting cocky with their mates. Couples where the girlfriends look ready to bite off their hubby's balls at the least sign of getting off on all the cheap roasty flesh on display. Other couples where the wife seems to hope that the sight of all but bare boobs and willing arses will finally suffice to harden the husband's long dormant drizzler enough for her aching lonely cunt with the stretched out labia rolled into her panties like she rolls up her saggy tits in the morning to fill up her padded brassiere. For her life tired and worn out cunt to get filly fucked and fatigued after a frenzy of frantic bedwrecking, fighting off old age. Fuck him to death. Leave false teeth marks on his neck for the coroner to ponder over when they lay him on the slab. Yeah, fuck him to death. And get some dumb fuck dipstick on her legs to spend the heritage with. Make him drink her piss mingled with champagne as she glasses. They look ever so fucking hard on some of the girls. Women actually that spend a good deal of attitude on not looking their age, but somewhat of a fictional, eternal 16-year-old not knowing what to do with the moist beast between their thighs, its gaping mouth salivating with lust for dick redemption. Glasses. Can't help but notice though that they all seem to be wearing the same model. Like some dumb-wit pimp got off on a school-teach porn flick and went on the internet to order 50 pairs of the same black, slightly ovalish rimmed glasses, with the outer corner mildly pulled off. Though nowhere near the Dame Edna version, cause that would kill off the trill, of course. There is probably a niche market for that as well. Maybe some guys or a Catholic nerd out there getting stiff over 50s glasses on 70-year-old aunties with a passion for spanking dirty boys on the ballsies. But hey, as I say, it's a niche market. And the red light district is all about catering lust to the masses as they pile through the streets, drunk or getting there, stoned or on the way, tripping on mushrooms, magic truffles and the likes, tripping over their astonishment over the candid display of proof that everyone's a dirty mind on a hot crotch. Couples lining up to see the live fucking on stage shows, both partners seemingly ready to say, look hon, that's how it's done. Let's go pick up a bag of aphrodisiac and get back to the hotel, practice this modern day Kama Sutra display. And I'm wandering through the crowd and wondering how much gold and silver, lost jewelry will be lining the pavement by midnight and beyond into the stretch of dawn. As the wasted punters ever more carelessly pull and push stuff in and out, in and out, in and out of their pockets. As they go for the next dose of dope, the next bottle to pay, the next session of the old in, out, in, out, in. There's sure to be a fortune there, but I can't see any, 'cause I lost my glasses a long time ago. How does it hold up that we as a species on ourselves, comparing ourselves to beasts long before Darwin came and had a say in it? There's so much derogatory thinking entwined in the human language, it's baffling that a mere depression or burnout should startle us at all. It's like we're born halfway through a session of bad dog training. Where's the trainer? Is it an absent god or a goddess or a bunch of them? Is it the big and mean dogs forever fearful of each other? Is it encrypted in our DNA that we should always feel shame and guilt over what we do and don't do? With as arbitrary a perception as can be. Reality, normality, what does it mean? When circumstance dictates the personal experience in such ways that it's always unique. Maybe the bias lies not in that we feel it, but rather overemphasize. Do all you like, save lives and help granny cross the streets, but be 5 minutes later you're a bad dog. Personalities become such a fashion statement over centuries that cloning seems a likely outcome. That way they all take the same crap for nourishment and become one and die off through a lack of life force. 'Cause if you get rid of the questions, you die. If you get rid of the questions, you die. Figure how much effort it took 500,000 years ago to survive and thrive up to the point of being able to get lazy. We piled up the caves into skyscrapers and went from shifting through foliage to shifting through administration forms, but the effort feels the same. The outcome still dependent on which branch you're born on, fall off, or aspire to. And the question of survival to what end hasn't gone away, nor all the littler questions it comprises. Is it maybe that along with the knowledge, our genes also carry the data of all the ancestral disgust amassed over centuries of famine, war, pestilence, and folly? The terror of seeing your like cells ripped to shreds by a saber-toothed tiger while you're tripping on some half-edible root. It still plays in the background of every horror movie the fearmongers cash in on, along with every frightened or frightening reflection ever since. We evolved by amassing information and finding lazier ways to process and act upon them over centuries. And it shows clearly that by amassing humans in a more or less coherent pattern of thought and behavior, the synced-in chords augment that reality, that melody, when then becomes their life song. It shows an evolution, a changing cadence, a need for improvisation within the team until two teams collide on the fringes and merge never seamlessly but needed and natural, like running brooks jumping down the mountain whilst they inscribe their way in the rocks, leaving a stone-carved truth in their wake. And so it's a plausible trend to notice that since we started gathering stones to build caves on a plain as a resting spot for the elderly, sick, fed-up, pregnant nomads that stopped wandering while the tribe moved on. And since after that other tribes passed and mingled, pruning and grooming each other, and the layout of villages gave the nomadic wandering a specific grid between the places of reap, hunt, and harvest. And with the amassing of people came the mass of goods and the increase of mutual dependency, and therefore the resurgence of the tribal forms, but this time by skill and property. And so tribes mixed and classes formed. Along with the root of our civilizations, we laid the seeds for our current day-to-day problems of sustainability as the human population forces itself into urban copycat lives. For one day, an old nomad stood out in a city he'd long ago, unknowingly, started. And he stood out. Where their roots lay on the roads and myriad waterways of the world, the city dwellers had engaged in a localized idea of worth and value, and thus view outlook on life that allowed for local variations, but less and less for things and beings outside the system of self-organization, the life form it had become. He smelled the city long before he could see it, and in the streets his own smell seemed to evaporate and mingle with that of 1,000 bodies, pigs, cattle, piss, wine, food, and vermin. Lost in the crowd as if it were a forest or a steppe, a plunge into the depths of the avalanche, singing with a million voices like crickets, frogs, birds, and beasts, as it thunders through the crevices of your mind, till the rumbling in your skull cave makes you feel the wildebeest urge to stampede, the goat's defiant needs to climb, the lizard's tongue flashing across your palate to frantically smell the way out, through and over this crowd, this anonymousness. Cities are whores. They're rising and crumbling buildings like ever-shedded skin cells, its flags like halter tops and flimsy tongs, its workers in bars and restaurants like nipples oozing out the manna of hometown milk. It's homeless like lonely pubic hairs forever cast out to the fringe of the honey pit, the dispensary of fine nectar, the crotch of all crutches. It's bank and real estate developers like the chunky and firm buttocks, the attractive hiding cove to the brown hole of ass, the sewer of the unholy death of all life consumed in its brick-lined stomach, its concrete guts, broken up by the gall and bile of administrations, regulations, and premeditated annihilations. Its streets and subway lines like arteries, sinews, and nerves shot through with blood cells, parasites, neurons, and reflexes, diseases and sugars, oxygen, nitrogens, and all sorts of genes, all thinking they're people. Leading separate, yet somehow intrinsically interlinked lives. Its neons and billboards and public information signs like the boudoir decor, leading your furtive gaze to the thinly veiled hole of holes, the hardly hidden hope of hard-ons, the moist and shiny cavern of the fountain of youth, saying, come in, come here. Disrobe, dismantle yourself, your honesty, your life. Give me your fortune while you seek to take mine. Give me your pleasure while you long to share mine. Give me your come, your livelihood, your essence as you seek shelter within me. And behold, at the entrance of bliss, the cruel hand of law and order, tradition and normality, of reap and reward and punish foremost the lazy, the wondrous and bewildered, the believers in luck and unbelievers in mediatized pre-chewed reality, that cruel hand forever rubbing the city's clit to keep it lusty and looking young, spreading a crazing perfume pervading its whole with a sense of home, of hope, of an orgastic, everlasting tomorrow. And as a stupid, trembling, stiff dickhead, ready to launch yourself upstream, ready to come and die like a motherfucking salmon, that ever-masturbating hand of common decency grabs you by the balls, plucks you off the ground, and leads you to reception, the head office, the glaring inspections of CCTV, fingerprints and passports, and throws you wailingly, headfirst, into the vagina dentata, the gaping, ever-hungry mouth of the city, its molars grinding your bones to factory worker size, your mind to desk clerk bits, your dick to liverwurst, your arse a bosses and landlords fuckhole, your tears to lube for the next contract signed in blood, written in shit,
as the screaming, laughing, self-fulfilling whore of whores, city of cities, narcissistically rides Shiva's marble dick into oblivion. All praise the gods for human intelligence, without which this whole charade would not exist, and we would find ourselves merely haphazardly surviving on the face of a living, ever-evolving divine planet. Our questing nature in tune with the ups and downs of the waves, moon and sun. Our hair and minds waving with the winds. Our breaths and aspirations like a singing breeze, not unlike that of chittering birds and growling beasts. Lustful and loving, and discovering in defiance of death and its myriad diseases. It's not space cake.
Sorry, man.